I have. That's how I know the timer ran out. Not yet. That's a good plan. There we go. But, yep, stream loading. And music. And my... I don't know, I had the music as my own voice again. That is pretty loud, actually. I'm not gonna lie. Discord's kind of distorted as well because it's clipping a bit. You're still on the loading page. There we go.
Hi.
Hello, Richard. Break. I think you've muted your voice on the stream. I'm coming out on the stream. I don't know why you aren't. Well, it's like there's a 20-30 second delay, so. No, you're not there at all. Marvellous. So how am I coming through? You're not. This is. Did you mute your mic in OBS? Did you route the mic output? Double click the triple dots thing again. We'll right click them. And make sure it's assigned to a track. Yes. Okay. And you're only sending track 1 probably to the stream. I'll click on track 1 as well, I guess.
try that then. Hello, hello, testing, 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 testing.
I think that works. It's just there's such a massive delay on it.
Oh, there we go. Somebody just said I'm here. Brilliant. Okay, so I'm assuming that nobody heard anything that I said at the start. So I'm gonna have to repeat it all. Brilliant. Love it. Living life, loving life. Right. So here I am. Hello, idiot person here with Rich, my tech support guy. Slash helper slash aeroplane person slash Exeter local who is going to be helping as much as he can and trying to reduce the overall amount of scuff.
The horror.
Yeah, the point of the stream is I don't know anything about streaming and I'm trying to learn, and it's just a little bit of a throwaway and a little bit of fun. We're going to be trying to fly into Storm Babette. Is that how you say it? Is that what it's called? I don't know. It's one of these named storms. It's hitting the UK at the moment. Everybody in Scotland has blown away. So we're going to be doing the sensible thing and flying into it and trying to land on a short runway in the rain, close to maximum crosswind. Just, yeah, all the sensible stuff. I'm sure it'll go great. I've literally got about a month's worth of experience on this aeroplane. So, yeah, what could go wrong? So
bear in mind, he is actually training to be a real pilot. In this
yeah.
Thing. So if he does something wrong, then try and work out who he's flying
not
for,
going to
so
work
you don't
now?
fly with him.
There we go. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend anybody flies in an aeroplane with me at all, ever. Right, so here we are down in Exeter. It's right in this pointy bit of the UK, right at the bottom. And here's where we're going, right at the top bit here. This pointy bit, up here in Aberdeen. The weather down here is actually really nice. It's about 4 knots of wind. It's mostly down the runway. The weather up here is massively ass. So, massive crosswinds, rain, all the lovely stuff, basically. All just typical Scotland weather. So, hopefully we'll be able to get there in one piece and alive. If not, it'll make good content, won't it? So, there we go. London in all caps in the chat. We are not going to London, bro. Definitely not. London is here, and it sucks. We aren't going there. Okay. So that's the routing. In terms of the aeroplane that we have, we've got a 737 NG 800 series. It's the PMDG, as I'm sure you've all seen this a million times, being streamed by people a lot smarter and a lot more competent than me. My type rating at the moment, my company runs these aeroplanes, but it also runs the 737 Classic, and everybody starts out just flying the Classic for the first 150 hours, which at our airline equates to the first sort of month and a half of your time with them. So I've got no experience with this aeroplane at all, because this is what you move on to once you've got that little bit of extra experience. But it's close enough to what I've been doing over the past sort of month that I should be all right-ish. Bear in mind, normally I'd be sat in that seat, and there'd be a very experienced person sitting in this seat telling me what to do. So yeah, so without further ado, let's try and do some kind of pre-flight setup. So we actually have a checklist, a read and do checklist for the first part of this, but I'm going to try and sort of do it from memory. You go across the top here, you do all the stuff on this overhead panel. So the first thing you want to be doing is getting the IRSs aligning, because it takes a reasonable amount of time. On the Classic it takes 12 minutes, I believe. Because the NG is smarter, it's only going to take us 7 minutes. That varies depending on where you are in the world. Coming across here, you've got your standby gear lights, which in the passenger version of the Classic are actually back in a little window underneath the floor, which really, really sucks if you're the first officer, because you have to go back and check them if you have one of these lights go out in flight. Thankfully, in the cargo version, you usually have them up here, because not having them up here would be really stupid if your little window in the main deck is covered up by a big cargo container. Up here, flight recorder's off because we've got no AC power. You do the 2 Mach airspeed warning tests, and you do the 2 stick shaker tests as well. There we go. And then you'd probably be checking your oxygen, so you'd come down here, you'd do that, but you also do a little check to make sure your microphone is working on your oxygen mask. So you flip this over to mask, you put the speaker on, and you do it again. If I can I? Ooh. Press to test. There we go. And in the real aeroplane, you'd hear it come through the speaker. So that's how you know that your microphone is working. Now, the common problem is that you forget that you flip this little switch over onto mask, and then you start trying to talk to air traffic, and all they hear is the sound of silence because you forgot to flip it back to that. There we go. So that's... where's the cigarette lighter? There isn't one, bro, but I mean, you know, we actually have a little extra socket back here in our aeroplanes that's got a USB in it. So if you had a USB cigarette lighter, I suppose you could plug it into that. That would be fun and games if you then dropped it into your crotch. Anyway, so that's that. That's the initial. Like I said, we have a paper checklist for all that stuff. But I'm going to pray that I didn't forget any of those basic items and then just go straight on to the flow, which is the first officer's duty in a 737. The first officer is basically the bitch. He kind of does all of the menial tasks while the captain, I don't know, chats to the flight attendants, gets a coffee, does all the fancy pilot stuff, and flashes his 4 bars around. So as a first officer, you're generally the first guy in the plane, and you come to it looking like this, with all the nasty lights on, and you've got to go, right, what do I need to do to get this plane working? And the easiest way to do it, or the way you're supposed to do it really, is to do it in rows. You can see the overhead panels kind of split up into these lines here. So you go top to bottom. Up here we've got the flight control section of the panel. All of these lights that are on right now are supposed to be there, apart from that one. So I'll put the yaw damper on now. Coming down, you've got the nav systems, make sure they're all on normal. Displays are on auto and normal. All of these fuel valve lights we don't have on the Classic because there's only 2 set of fuel valves on the Classic. Fuel temperature, maximum fuel temperature is actually 49 degrees. We are absolutely nowhere near that today. You always check the cross-feed valve and make sure the valve open light goes bright and then dim to show that it is moving and then in position. Fuel pumps, so that's a good question actually. Should we start get some fuel on the aeroplane? I've already selected our block fuel. We're going to take 7.2 tons. I've not factored for any extra, which you normally would do when the weather's pants. But, you know, Riolo. So we're going to start the fueling now. And going back to the overhead, so what we would do if we were about to start the APU is we'd put the aft number 1 fuel pump on. But you know, captains don't like to waste fuel, so we'll leave it off for now. I'm cooking chicken. I'm not sure what's more interesting, this or watching the chicken game, that little golden cross. I'd say the chicken. The chicken's a lot more interesting than this. Right, going back up to the top, you can check your amps. So we're on battery at the moment, but you might want to check, I don't know, anything else on the buses here. You normally leave it to that when you shut the airplane down because all of these other settings here actually drain the battery. So you leave it to TR1, Transformer Rectifier 1. When you shut the airplane down, it stops your battery from running out. Ground power, so we've got the ground power selected on the selector over here. That's fine. Cabin utilities and IFE stuff, we don't have any of that because we're a cargo aeroplane, so I don't know why those switches are on. Drive lights are both on the IDGs, but they are connected. These are wire locked in real life. They've got a little wire coming through them to make sure you don't accidentally turn them off. If you turn them off in flight, you're stuffed because they have to be reconnected by an engineer on the ground. Got ground power available. We are on the ground power at the moment, so if I hadn't done this already, I'd be putting the aircraft on ground power. All the Jennies are off. Bus off lights on the engine generators. APU shut down. Wipers, 2 wiper switches. Wow, what a privilege. There's only 1 on the Classic. Runway turn off and taxi lights are all off. The APU's off for now. Lights I've already set up. We've got some nice overhead panel lights on here. Equipment coolings are both selected to normal and there's no lights on there. Flip the switch guard closed to arm the emergency exit lights. Even though we've got no passengers because we're a cargo plane, we still put the fasten seatbelts on. And bing bong. Engine start. First start of the day, we'll go onto the right igniter system. Both the start switches are in off. Window heats can all come on. The probe heats are off. Anti-ice is all off. Electric hydraulics, this is important to keep off. unless unless you're a 737-300, because the 300 sometimes needs one of these electric hydraulic pumps running to get the cargo door open and closed, which is somewhat dangerous, because if you've got people walking around outside the aeroplane, that means all the aircraft's control surfaces are powered, and potentially you could, you know, move something that chops somebody's appendage off. So normally, with sort of 90% of cargo 73s, and with any 73, you'd make sure you'd got these turned off to make sure that doesn't happen. We've got the door lights, we've got forward cargo, aft cargo, and the forward entry lights open on, because that's the doors we've got on. We can do a test on this. And then this is a bit different to the one I'm used to. The one I'm used to, there we go. The one I'm used to has a little level gauge on here that you press and it just spikes up to show that it's actually picking up noise. Cabin pressure is at 0. We're not pressurized, which is a good idea. That's at 0 as well. Voice recorder's in auto. Temps, so we can... yeah, you can. This is different to what I'm used to, but I don't know. Forward, maybe supply ducts. That's probably a good idea, because we don't really care what temperatures the cargo's at, as long as it's not freezing solid. 3-zone control, which is similar to a 737-400. You've got 2-zone controllers controlling 3 zones. Left pack feeds the cockpit and the air manifold. Right pack feeds the air manifold, which goes into the back zones. Then you have the trim air system, which trims the temperature of the cabin, which is completely unimportant for a cargo aeroplane. So I've no idea why they made me learn that. You've got 2 recirculation fans on all of the larger cabin size 737s have got 2 instead of 1. Packs are both off. Isolation valve is open, which is an NG thing on the Classic. You normally have it in auto at this point. The engine bleeders are on. APU bleed is off. Then we come to the pressurization panel. We've got a cruising altitude today of flight level 230. Landing altitude is, I have no idea. 1 second. Aberdeen. Maybe I should have done this on the sim brief on page, but oh well. Elevation 202 feet. Okay, so let's pop that in. Always go a little bit higher than what it actually is to play it safe. Pressurization control is an automatic. That's a very, very important switch. You don't want to leave it in manual and then not pressurize the plane. Helios. So yeah, so that's what's going on there. That's all set up and ready to go. Lights, got the position lights on. Unless you, well, if you've seen any of my boring videos, you'll know that there's a language to external lights on aeroplanes. So all of these things you use to tell ground staff that certain things are happening. At night, you might put the wheel well lights on. You might put the logo light on as well if you want to, you know, rep FedEx. But okay, so the logo light doesn't work unless you've got the Jenny on. Interesting. Not sure that's entirely accurate. I'm pretty sure the ground power runs all of the generator buses, so all of the power should be available with that on. No interest at all for airliners. Hey, you and me both, bro. Love your channel for the GA action. Test streams success already. Your voice now audible. Cheers and have fun. Love you. Bye. Right. So that's all done. So that's the overhead panel. Then you do the MCP. You come across the top here. You make sure everything is set up as you want. This is down here on the Classic, so it's a bit weird to have it up in front of my face, but that's, yeah, that's fine. We'll keep it like that. Pilot flying is going to be my side, and you, in fact, do you have those lights? Yeah, you do. There we go. So the little MA shows the master side. So that means currently the master flight director is the captain's side, not the first officer's. It's the one that you turn on first that becomes the master. Speed, we don't have a V2 yet, so you said it's a minimum. On the NG it's 100, on the Classic it's 110. Heading, don't have one of them yet, not really done any of that. And normally what we do is set that in the altitude window to show that we haven't yet got a cleared level. Vertical speed window's not even open, courses are both at 0, and then you come down here and you do all this stuff. Normally you'd have to wait for the captain to get in his seat to do all of this stuff, because well, unless he's out of the airplane doing something else, but usually, obviously, he's blocking this side of the cockpit, so you can't really reach across and do all this stuff. Clock is, yeah, clocking. Coming across here, we've got a FMC into IRS position. Okay, we'll get that going now. POSing it. Now this is a bit of a privilege because some of our aeroplanes, some of the classics, don't even have GPS. But there we go, we've got GPS, as all NGs do. Coming across, that's all good. We don't, well, we don't have any pressure yet. Let's assume we've not got the ACES or anything like that. Hey there, love your channel. Think it is criminally undersubbed. Me too. Please keep making them. I really enjoy them. Thinking of starting my PPL here in northern Germany next year if time and money allow. Yep. I've no idea how much it costs in Germany, but it's probably a lot of money. But keep that, keep dreaming that dream, bro. That's how we all started out. Right.
Criminal lack of video too.
Oh, all right, Rich. Jeez, bloody hell. Right. Let's get some of these. Let's get some of this cargo going in, shall we? Otherwise, we're going to be here all night. Coming across the top, we'll put the auto brakes into RTO, rejected takeoff mode. It's giving us auto brake disarm, which it shouldn't do at this point, really. And anti-skid on. Right, okay, so in the real aeroplane, you shouldn't have this light illuminated right now. This should be out, and you should be able to arm the auto brakes. I'm assuming that when I put the hydraulics on, it'll fix itself, but we'll keep an eye on that. The gear lights are green. They're agreeing with the landing gear lever, which is in the down position. DUs are all set to the normal. We've got the red light, which is main cargo door, illuminated on the main panel, and you'd go across the first officer's side, oxygen and all that kind of stuff. There's also, don't know, can you see it here? Maybe not. There's a main crew oxygen bottle shut-off valve just behind the FO's seat, which that's very important to make sure that's turned on. Right, then you come down the pedestal. Trust me, there's not that much more left to go. Flaps 0 and indicating. Speed brake is down. Parking brake. Let's put the parking brake on, shall we? So squeeze that, and there we go. Start levers are both cut out. Stab trim is in the not cut out position. Fire handle. So I suppose you could do this at this point. So you do your. There we go, and you count 6 lights on this one, and then you do the other one, and all the bells and whistles go off, and there we go. And you should be able to count 11 lights when that does that. So that's that test. Radios. So at this point, I'd probably be looking at my charts and getting the radios set up, ready to go. So let's have a look at what we got. I don't want the weather. Right, let's try ATIS 119330. So the way most airlines will run the audio panel is that you put all of your listening things like ATIS on box number 2, and you put all of your talking things on box number 1. So normally what our company policy is you have 1215 always tuned somewhere. So we'll have it in the standby on box 2, because how else would you hear all the other pilots meowing on frequency if you don't have that tuned somewhere? Then you pop the ATIS into there. On this side, we're going to have tower, and if there is a ground frequency, you put that in, but there isn't a ground frequency at Exeter. There's just tower. So 119805 is going to go in this side. There we go, and then we can have a little look at the departure, I guess, although there aren't any actual departure procedures, so let's have a look.
Climb to 1,000 feet, turn one direction.
Yeah, climb to 1,000 feet and just turn, that's kind of it, really. Don't want Aberdeen, thanks. Yeah.
Berry head VOR is 11205.
Right, that's probably not a bad idea to have that.
While you're fiddling with the radio.
I'll have Berryhead in, and Exmoor, what's Exmoor?
Exmoor is not a VOR.
It's not, is it? It's a waypoint.
Brecon is
the VOR, yeah, that's the one.
1099 for the ILS.
11745, we'll have that. Now, this is something I've found quite weird. They don't seem to like setting en route frequencies in 737s for some reason. Like, I'm very used to, as you're flying along, constantly tuning up en route nav aids just in case you need them for whatever reason. And all of a sudden, in the world of 737, it's like, nah, don't bother with that. You got FMS. It's like, what? You trust the FMS that much? I don't. So there we go. We'll have the ILS for for Exeter. If we can get that.
1099.
Is that it? Is that the ILS?
Yes.
Ah, clever. In fact, we'll have that instead of that on box 1. There we go.
I think you might get Southampton if you're really lucky, but
Nah, I'm probably not going to bother. I'm not going to be going that way when the weather's nice here. So if you have an emergency, we'll come straight back here. Right. Okay. So radio's done, and you'd probably first off should be picking up the clearance at this point. So you'd be calling up and getting that. Don't know why that's 1234. It should be 2000, which is your default IFR squawk. Max giving us a wave. Hello. Ooh. I don't care. Shut up, Tom Jet. Right. Anything else on here? Just the trims, really. So you check the trims in the middle there. You've got no trim indicators for your aileron, apart from this on top of the yoke. So you're looking to make sure that that's lined up. And then you'd come over here and you'd look at stab trim. So this is alternate stab trim over here, which most commonly is used as a hook to put your rubbish bag on. So you open that up and you hang a plastic bag off it, which is very safe indeed. In reality, what it's supposed to be used for is it's an alternate trim system. So the way the trim's supposed to work, or rather the trim cutout's supposed to work, is that if you have a trim runaway of one of the primary trim systems... Oh my days. Literally shut up. Why are they so loud, and why can't I turn them down? These are the volumes here, so normally what you do is you could adjust it here. But yeah, don't seem to be able to do that for some reason. Oh well. Yeah, so the way the trim system works in the 737 is that you've got two electric trim systems, the autopilot one and the electric one, which works off your little thumb switches here. If either of those starts running away, the first actions you do as a pilot is grab hold of the yoke and fight against it with the yoke, and that will automatically interrupt any actions done by either of those trim systems. So that should prevent any trim runaway from getting worse. And you can then either use your trim switches to fight against it, or you can cut the trim out, kill it, and just go to manual, which is, of course, the big wheel here. You just fold a little handle out and crank it around with the help of your friend on the other side of the cockpit. What this does is it prevents that trim cutout from happening. So if you don't want the trim cutout to occur when you're putting a lot of input in on the control yoke, aka maybe you've had some kind of catastrophic failure of the tailplane of the elevator, and you're having to constantly put inputs in on there, and you don't want it to cut out your trim inputs, so as you're trying to trim against those forces, you activate this, and it prevents that trim cutout from happening. So there you go, the more you know. Flight deck door, we don't bother with this, because 99.9% of the time nobody's in the back. But yeah, we'll just leave it on auto today. The great thing we've got, thank you PMDG, is that we don't have a weather radar in this aeroplane, so we're flying into a huge storm with no weather radar. This is going to be fantastic. Right, so FMS setup. So normally while the first officer's doing all that rubbish, the captain's coming into this and doing all of the pre-flight in the FMS. Of course, I'm on my own in here, so you'll have to bear with. I'm sure you've seen this 1,000,001 times. But we'll go through it just in case nobody's seen it for some reason. So you start off with the ident page, you make sure your nav database is in date, then you deposit it, you put the position of the aircraft in, and if you've got GPS then you flip over to this, bring it down to the line select, throw it into the boxes. Anything in boxes, by the way, is mandatory information. We've got a reference airport of EGTE, so that goes into there, there we go. Then in the route, it automatically comes up there, so we can throw it in there. And then EG Papa Delta. Let me just double check that that is right. Yes, it is. That goes in there. We are NPT 20 Foxtrots. There we go. And then we can go into departures arrivals. Departure 26 Exeter. There aren't any SIDS or standard instrument departures. And then we can put the routing in. So There we go. Right, I'm going to bring the flight plan up on my iPad at the side of me so I can put this in. But it's the one that you saw on SimBrief a second ago. I just find it quite difficult to have that on screen as I'm trying to put things in the FMS. Right. Let me try and find this. There we go, routing. So it's direct Exmoor. Oh, there's two of them. Definitely not the North 37 one, though. Direct Carwi. Then we've got November Ace 864. And we're going to the Avtic. November 38. To Knockin. Papa 17. To Polhill, something I used to fly over a lot when I was instructing. November 601 to Grice, Papa 600 to Adian, and then direct, so we'll put an arrival in. We're expecting runway 16, so we'll put in the ILS there. We're not going to put a transition in. I'll just try and, I don't know, do some magic with the FMS to make it bring that in. Put that in there. That looks fairly sensible. Normally we have the legs page now, and remembering that it's actually up here, go to plan and step through it to make sure it looks vaguely correct and that you aren't kind of doubling back on yourself or going to Africa or anything like that, unless you're actually intending to go to Africa. There we go, across there, Aberdeen, and then it kind of doubles back on itself. But I'll do something to link that up, or just, I don't know, vector myself. We'll make it work. So then we go to map on there. So that's the routing. We'll activate, execute, and you can see those white dots have now turned magenta, which means it's now a command instruction. It's telling you to follow the line, which is the life of an airline pilot. You just follow purple lines around. Right, so once that's done, you're then going to go to init ref, and you're going to put all the weights and things in. So normally you'd get a load sheet off the ground guys. Let's get rid of all these things. By the way, we've got a full aeroplane. We've got 17.5 tons of cargo on board this aeroplane today. You can see all these ULDs in the compartment here. So we're full of something. Been ordering lots of... Shut up. Been ordering lots of Amazon parcels or something in Aberdeen. Something, that's for sure. We're going to flight level 230. Let's see. Cruise wind. Cruise wind 05111. That does not sound an awful lot. It's probably going to change dramatically when we get to the other end. Average ISO is +2. So we can go to... It doesn't actually have that. Interesting. Our aeroplanes have a ISO deviation box that comes up here, but never mind. Transition altitude 6,000 sounds about right. Gross weight we don't know yet. According to
TA for extra, it's 3,000.
See, in the real aeroplane, auto-populates that based on the nav database. But
fun fact: the MSA is 3,500.
Interesting.
for a couple of quarters. Yeah.
Right. So let's have a quick look over here. I'm just going to cheat. We obviously don't have a load sheet, but we do have this on this side of the FMS. For anyone not in the know, you don't have this on the real aeroplane. This is just like sim controls through PMDG. So it's telling you that you have a gross weight of 64.4 and a zero fuel weight of 57.2. So all we're going to do is put in the zero fuel weight. And set our reserves. Let's see what the reserves are. We've got about 2 tons worth of reserves, so let's just put 2.0 in here. I'm going to run with a cost index of 35. It's giving us an optimum of flight level 385, so we can go a lot higher than we actually are flight planned for, but I don't know. We'll see. We may want to climb a little bit if it's... but then again, SimBrief may have put us down at a lower flight level because the winds at higher levels could be really strong and blowing against us. So, you know, there's reasons behind things. The ops people are a lot smarter than you are usually, most of the time. Okay, cool. So that's that. Now, N1 limit. So you can select some fixed D rates, or if you have access to the magical Boeing OPT thing, you can do it yourself. So that's what I'm going to do. We've got a takeoff CG now at 24%, so that's going in this box. And then we're going to calculate. I'm afraid this doesn't make great TV because obviously you can't see this app, but it's really good. Sorry if anyone's jealous. So we've got a V1 of 135, VR of 139, V2 of 145, and VREF 40 of 139, which is what we'll climb at if we lose an engine. Selected temperature is 36. So we're going to throw 36 degrees in there, and that's going to derate our engines based on an assumed temperature of 36 degrees. Now, it's not going to derate it by an awful lot. In fact, it's probably not going to derate it at all because it's a short runway. So as you can see, we've got the full 26k here. So, yeah, cool. Makes sense. We're going to use a flap 5 departure. We've got a takeoff CG of 24%, which gives us a trim of 4.77. So at this point, you set the trim to something that looks like 4.77. Ooh, dropping your iPad on the floor while you do it. Always make sure you tell the other crew member that you're about to do that, because the little handles that are a part of these wheels have a habit of flipping out and then smashing you in the kneecap, which is always fun. So the numbers on here basically match up with what I've got on the OPT, but I'm going to use the OPT numbers because that's what you're supposed to do. 139 and 145. There we go. And then as soon as you put the V2 in, you put it on the IIS window on the MCP. So we're going to go 139 on here. There we go. And that should be pretty much it. So that's your pre-flight, all your pre-flight stuff done. Pilot flying would usually have this page on here, and pilot monitoring would usually have the routes page on here, so you can do your pre-takeoff brief. But since I'm going to have to do the pushback through this one, we'll keep it on this. So we are pretty much ready for the checklist. So stand by. I'm just going to try and grab a checklist to make sure that I've done everything. Have to bear with because my company iPad has signed me out, as it often does, exactly when you need it the most. Then it decides it needs 17 different updates. Thanks. Love it. Unbelievable. Right, okay, well, I'll do something else while I'm waiting for that. Suppose we could get the aircraft ready for pushback, so we could set the pushback up. Let's have a look. So taxi at EXT is pretty straightforward. So let's do a briefing. You're supposed to do the briefing before you run the checklist anyway. So taxi routing is going to be we're going to push back all the way along Charlie, then we're going to have to backtrack the runway from Charlie, use the turning pad here at the end to come round, and then wee off in that direction. Emergencies, if we have an engine failure or anything before...
Is that a technical term, is it?
Yeah, definitely. Before 80 knots, we're just going to stop. After 80 knots, we're only going to stop for engine failure, or fire of any kind, smoke in the cockpit, cargo door open, blocked runway, predictive wind shear, the plane explodes, something like that. Rejector takeoff drill is going to be captain slams the throttles closed, pulls the speed brakes up, pulls reversers in, and lets RTO do its thing, assuming you've passed 90 knots, because before 90 knots the RTO ain't going to do anything. First officer's going to call speed brakes up, reversers normal, assuming they are, or reversers unlocked. Is that what you call on an NG? Not sure. Until the aircraft stops. Wind is very, very light today, so we don't really need to point it into wind. We'll just point down the runway, call air traffic, let them know what's happened, and then discuss the problem and what we're going to do next. Okay, so that's that. Done a little briefing thing there. In terms of the departure, as Rich alluded to, all you got to do is climb straight ahead to 1,000 feet and then turn. So our initial altitude on this departure is whatever we want it to be, whatever would be cleared by ATC, basically. But let's say that ATC have cleared us to, I don't know, let's make it awkward. Let's make it 6,000, or rather flight level 60. So there's a transition altitude change to do as well, which is going to be, you know, fun. So we'd pass 1,000 feet, we'd make the turn. You're going to delay tucking your flaps away or anything like that while you do the turn. So you'd probably leave it in heading mode, and then pray, basically. So, oh God, what the hell's going on there? Right. So yeah, so you'd stick it in heading mode and make your turn, or you do it manually. Honestly, I'm more happy flying the plane manually than I am using the autopilot, just because I'm not very good at using the autopilot yet. So I'll probably just keep it in manual and do the turn by hand, and then pray the autopilot works.
What sort of airline pilot are you?
I don't know, a really bad one, okay? Right, okay.
My plane yourself. Well.
Right, my iPad's working now, so I can do the checklist. Right, so normal checklist. Right. So pre-flight checklist: oxygen tested 100%, instrument transfer switches are normal and auto, passenger signs are on, window heats are on, pressurization panel auto and set, flight instruments. Knew there was something I didn't do. I was going to get the weather, wasn't I? So let's have a look at the latest. Exeter, Taffin meetup. We've got a QNH of 977. Pretty low pressure, in fact, very low pressure.
Yes, you can feel it down here.
Nose bleeding. There we go. And stick it on the first officer's side as well, who seems to have, I think he's in America. There we go. So that's in there. Better set the MCP up for departure as well. So we've got 257. So let's set 257 on course bars. I mean, realistically, what it might be sensible to do is have the course bars set up for the first track. So first track towards Exmoor is 010. So let's have 010 on the course, and let's set the heading bug to runway heading. That's probably a little bit more cleverer. And heading is going to be 257. PMDG smiley face, yep. Living the life.
I'm not sure which smiley face that was.
Winky face. It's the Diva special. Right. Okay, so that's set. Flight instruments. So we've got 133 on the heading and an altitude of 100 feet set and cross-checked 3 times. Auto brake is set RTO, although the light's on, which isn't great. Parking brake is set. Engine start levers are both cut off. Taxi and takeoff briefing has been completed. And EFB battery and database at suitcase. That's pre-flight checklist complete. Before start, so flight deck door is closed and locked. Fuel. So this is probably a good idea to start the APU now. So let's pop that on. Let's see if this thing decides it wants to live today. One way to check that it is starting is have this on battery and check you've got an instant load on the battery. It is reading 28 volts, which means it's charging, but you get an instant load on that because the APU can only start from battery power, believe it or not. So you can't actually start the APU from external power. Right.
So you can't go out with a crank and start the thing then?
No, surprisingly enough. It's rubbish, that, isn't it? So fuel.
It's cold.
We've got 7.2 tons on board and planned for a little bit less than that. I think we planned for 6.9, so I did take a little bit of extra, but it's literally like half a circuit's extra, so we're still going to be in trouble if we have to go around multiple times. But yeah, that's what we've planned for. Pumps, I'll tell you what, I'm not doing my first officer duties. Before you run this checklist, the FO would put all the pumps required on. I don't think, have we got any center? Yeah, we've got nothing in the center, so that's fine. So yeah, so we've got 7.2 tons, pumps are on. Doors closed, no. What? Have we still got any doors open? Yeah, we've got the main door open. I should probably get that closed right now, so let's get that shut.
Does that need hydraulics to shut?
Not the #1 door. That's all manual. Okay. That's fine. The main cargo door on an NG actually has its own supply, so you don't have to worry about having to run a hydraulic pump from the flight deck. It's got its own isolated hydraulic loop. Straight out, pushback. Do we trust it to just go straight, or do we want to turn? We want to nose left, don't we? Really, ideally.
Yeah, it's a huge apron though, so if it goes wrong, you've got plenty of space.
Let's do this right, and let's check we can get the AP1 bus. There we go. Parking brake is set, so we can pull the chocks away now, which should also get rid of our stairs and our GPU and all of this paraphernalia around the right hand side of the airplane, the fueler and all that kind of stuff. They should start making their way away from the aircraft now. There we go. Don't know if any of you saw my screenshot of this guy parked on a roof. He was loving life. Is he going to phase through the buildings? Scenery, by the way, is that really brilliant free Exeter scenery. You can get it on flightsim.to. I recommend it. It's great. It's great frame rates, and it's really, really realistic as well, as Rich will attest to. Okay, so that is done. Doors have closed now. Windows are both locked on both sides. MCP has got V2 set 139 VR of whatever it was at, forgotten now. But yeah, we've done all that stuff. But you'd normally call it out, and both sides would call it out as well. But normally I'd have the FMC to look at as well to remind me of what they actually are. Stab trim was about 4.7. That's set. Speed brake is down. CDU pre-flight's been completed. PED's flight modes installed, and that's complete to the line. At which point we would then request our pushback, and then we do the pre-start flow, which involves throwing on the electric hydraulic pumps. We turn on the APU bleed. We put the anti-collision light on. Then we come down and we put the transponder into alt off. It's already in, yeah, it's already turned on. That's bad. Anyway, there we go. Turn that off. Let's see if we've got, so the anti-skid in-op light's gone out, but we've still got auto brake disarm, so I'm just going to cycle that. It should come on for a few seconds, then go out. There we go. So that's not how the real aeroplane works. I'm not really sure what's going on there, but sort your stuff out, PMDG. So then we're ready for the before start checklist below the line. So hydraulics are all on, transponders set stand by, rudder and aileron trim. So the captain would go down here and he'd just cycle the trims and make sure they all work, but I'm not going to bother. Anti-collision lights on, and that's the before start checklist complete. Next is the before taxi, so we are ready to go. So we select the tug, and then we tell it to start.
Go ahead. We've been cleared for pushback and start. They want the tail to our right. Copy that, ready to push. Tail to the right. Parking brakes release, please.
Okay, so squeeze the toe brakes, flip that off.
Brakes released.
Go on then. Please work.
Brakes released, here we go.
Oh, there we go, thank God. Right, so first officer checks the duct pressure. It needs to be above 30 psi, plus or minus 0.5 for every 1,000 foot above or below sea level, blah, blah, blah. I'm sure you don't care about that, but packs are off and bleeds on. So we've got duct pressure, presumably. Hang on, let's do this so I can actually see. We do, but it's quite low, weirdly enough. Well, YOLO. Properly configured, aren't we? Yeah, please on. Never mind. Right. YOLO.
What was that? You got no brake pressure?
Yeah, there's the duct pressure
Low
on the...
brakes.
Yeah, it's quite low. I don't know if that might be an NG difference. Yeah, it seems to be rolling the engine all right. It's got N2, N1. Looking for a 25 coming up here. It's close enough. Can hear the engine light off. Got fuel flow. Got EGT coming up. That's a maximum of 725 on this you want to be looking for.
So then maybe shut the Navigraph thing.
Parking brake, please.
It's an ugly bar across the window.
It is an ugly bar. Bye-bye.
Brake set.
Get the brake on. There we go. And starter cutouts.
Release from guidance on your right and have a good flight.
Alright, bye-bye, Mr. American. And then we go ground on this side. We'd also check the duct pressure again. N2. Great to see you live streaming, thank you. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm trying my best.
This is what happens when you don't have string for internet.
There we go, 25. Listen for the engine lighting off. On the Classic, you can hear the light up really clearly. Don't think you hear it quite as well on the NG. EGT's coming up, indicating we've got something going on in the engine. Captain would usually have his hand on this throughout this whole process, ready to kill it if things look like they're going wonky.
Presumably you can't accidentally hot start one.
You can throw the fuel in right at the start. Yeah, you can light it on fire. Remember, it's a plane from the 70s, and it still runs like a plane from the 70s. Right, that's starter cutouts. We've got 2 good starts. That's good. So at this point, you would then do your flight controls check. So full forward, full aft, full left, full right, and the rudders left, right. The first officer would also do his rudders at this point. And then he'd do the after start flow, which involves putting the jennies on the bus, put the probe heats on, anti-ice if you need it, which we don't for now. Pax auto, isolation valve auto, APU bleed off. We have a please don't die switch down here called the flight ground switch on the Classic, which has to be in flight at this point, which is really important, but don't have to worry about it because we're on an NG and it's all fancy. Start switches to continuous. APU, quite often we'd have to wait a minute for this to run down with the bleed closed, but an NG I don't think it really matters, so we can pop the APU off now. And then we can do the recall, and we are all clear on the recall. And flaps 5. So the captain would call for that, and the first officer would do it. And then we'd do the before taxi checklist. So generators are on, pitot heat probe heater on, anti-ice not required, air conditioning pressurization, Pax auto bleed set, engine start switch is continuous, recall has been checked, engine start levers idle detent, flight controls have been checked, ground equipment's clear. We are ready to roll, and the captain would say, all clear on the left, and then the first officer would say, all clear on the right, and then you'd throw these on. Get rid of the wheel well lights now, and away we go. Now you can do a little check of the takeoff warning system by just revving the engines up a little bit when you first start taxiing. That's not standard practice in my airline. I know it's standard practice in some other airlines, an Irish one. It looks like a good idea to do, but for whatever reason it's not in our SOPs. In case you're wondering, I'm using a joystick as a tiller, which works really, really well actually. So I've got a yoke in front of me, and I'm steering with a joystick, which is pretty big brain in my opinion. So while you got a little bit of time on the taxi out, you do your briefing. So 1 second. Just trying to set my iPad up while I do this.
Yeah, the only thing missing from this airport was the proper elevation, but
Right.
he's working on it. He's been working on it for 2 years. But
Bless
apparently
him.
the
God loves a
elevation
trier.
Apparently the elevation for the entire area is off. So if you put the proper airport elevation in, you end up with it on a plateau.
Excellent.
So yeah, it's taking some time, but he's still going. He's still trying.
So got quite a heavy aeroplane today, so I'm having to use a fair bit of throttle. Not that I know much about taxiing, because as a first officer you don't do the taxi. And at this point we do a pre-departure brief. So position, we're not using an intersection departure, so we don't need to worry about that. Pumps, we got 4 pumps on, nothing in the center tanks. Performance, we've got full power takeoff, 95.9 is on the N1 bugs. Emergency, we discussed what to do if we have a rejected takeoff. Departure is going to be straight ahead, 1,000 feet, turn, then clean up. And stop altitude is going to be flight level 60. Any questions, Rich?
No, sir.
That's what we like to hear. I love how realistic those flashing yellows look for the holding point. That's really, really nice. You've done a good job with those. Right, obviously we'd have to get, clearance to backtrack, or even clearance for departure before we cross this line. But hey, I really don't care if text-to-speech gets angry at us. We're going to go for it. I was considering giving VATSIM a go, actually, but there's not any controllers online at the moment anyway, so...
God, I don't know if there's ever anybody
Yeah,
online
so,
down here, so...
not much point, really.
Nope.
Maybe next time.
It's a pity, though, because extra radar gets a lot to do. There's, like... In about 30 miles, there's, like, 6 or 7 airstrips, and there's GA traffic everywhere.
Yeah.
And then there's all the military traffic out of Yeovilton, who are always all over the place. It is a very busy area down here.
Right, so at some point the captain calls for a before takeoff checklist, which is pretty short. It's just cabin secure, flaps 5 planned, 5 indicated, green lights, stab trim 4.7 units, sets, takeoff briefings, been reviewed. That's before takeoff checklist complete. First officer would, assuming we've been clear for takeoff, throw these on and put the strobes to strobe and steady. And probably turn the dome light off as well. Oop. Is that the little turning pad? It's not, is it? No, that's a taxiway.
Nope. It's kind of hard to see, actually.
I was expecting to see some green lights, but... oh, don't stop. Come on. Oh, my brake's stuck on or something. There we go. Thanks, PMDG.
Don't turn left, whatever you do.
I can't see anything. It's
right.
pitch black. I'm hoping the turn lights will illuminate it as I come up to it.
Well, you can see the yellow line at least. But I'm pretty sure those... Well, given Exeter doesn't operate... Well, actually, yes, they do send a flight out in the dark. Huh.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because every night, I guess. Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, I'm seeing it. It's... There we go. That'll have to do. This is not exactly how it looks in real life, trust me, but oh well. Because we'd definitely be taking those out with our wing. Let's cheat with external view.
Oh, God.
Right, so we're quite performance limited, so we certainly wouldn't do a rolling takeoff. So we'd want to try and stick it on as close to on the center line as possible, on the piano keys. That's assuming, you know, the captain knows what he's doing, which today he definitely doesn't. There we go. And assume we've been cleared for takeoff. So the final things that happen are auto throttle is armed and the taxi light goes off. So, ready to roll. You ready, Rich?
Take off.
Okay. %, stabilized, setting thrust. Light forward pressure on the control column. And the auto throttle's cut out, so we're going manual thrust. Great. It's fine, I'll do it myself. Not entirely sure why that is. Probably something I've not done. 80 knots. V1 rotates.
Positive rate of climb.
Positive climb gear up. So the command bars are commanding over 20 degrees. You wouldn't really let it do that. We'll wait for this freeze to stop happening. Then we'll go heading cell and make the turn. And past 1,000, we can go speed 210. Set climb thrust. Okay, speed check, flaps 1. And flaps up. Speed trim system's going absolutely mental. Right, let's get the heading bug lines. And we're going to go N1, or maybe it'll go level change. Is that going to go in? There we go, that'll do. Command A. Leave it in that for now, while I just go down to the FMS and throw X more up to the top, execute, and we'll set standard now. So, standard, standard, and there we go, I've missed the classic. I've done the classic single pilot thing of completely muffing up the level off, partly because I've not got the auto throttle in, which doesn't help. Let's see if we can get it in now. There we go. MCP speed. Nice to keep it below 250 at least. Let's assume we've been cleared up to cruise altitude anyway. So climb 230, final level. And that's probably giving me an off-path descent, but we'll ignore that. Because let's go VNav now. And LNav. N1, LNav, VNav speed. So that sounds about right. Is it going to go up? Or I'm going to have to hit that. Go on, up you go. Now it's getting going eventually. Right, what's it saying here? Verify position. That's not good. I'll disagree. Ah, there we go. That's better. Yeah, so that's the big gotcha on this departure. Right, we'll do the after takeoff float. So those go up and off. That goes off. Start switches go off. Packs are on. We are pressurizing, and we're going up. We're going to be going past flight level 100 soon. Got 8,400 at the moment. These displays are so much nicer than the ones in the Classic. The Classic's just got lots of little individual circular digital gauges, which are much harder to read than this. And I think what you also do is that. Get rid of the lower DU. Flight level 100. So just make sure we're pressurizing. Turns go off, all the lights go off. Logo lights can go. Any others that we've got on? Don't think we've got any of those ones. And then, because we're going to final level, we can also do another little check. So we make a check on legs page. We've got flight level 230's final level. Flight level 230 is set on there, and then we do a check of the overhead, and we've got flight level 230 set on the pressurization panel as well. And there we go. Then you just fall asleep and wait for the plane to land itself.
Or you spend an hour making cat noises.
Yeah, on 1215.
Yes.
So you can see as we pass flight level 100, it's taken the flight 250 knots restriction away, and we've accelerated up to 300, which was a bit of a shocker the first time you see that. Climbing at 300 knots. Coming from a background of light aircraft and turboprops. One thing I didn't do as well, I didn't put the bloody transponder on. Terrible first officer. That's because I didn't do the line-up flow. So the line-up flow when you're pulling onto the runway when you clear for takeoff is to put the inboard landing lights on, put both weather radars switches on, and then put the transponder on as well. But there we go. Single pilot ops. I'm making my excuses. Now, we don't have a weather radar, because thanks PMDG, but we do have a GTN 750, which has a weather radar on it. So I'm going to be using a light aircraft weather radar system to make sure we don't fly head first into some nasty stuff. There we go, it's looking pretty good. Well, sure is dark. Evening, gents. Have you flown or are you going to? We are going to Aberdeen. We're trying to fly into a storm, which should be fun. Let's pretend that this is... Can I move this? Should be able to move this, surely. Maybe not. Look, it's there. It's a weather
You can kind of stretch the edges of the windows and then unstretch the other edge.
Right.
I
was just trying to be a bit of a
yes
a meme and put it there so we could pretend that it's there we go.
Can you imagine if they made this work on a PFD somewhere? Well, I mean, common units are so much. They've got so much more usability than super expensive.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, even the NG is a product of the what, like mid '90s, late '90s. So
yeah, it's before everybody got home game consoles, and you know, UI became. Lots of people went into UI work, so it was good enough for the military, and it's good enough for civils. Some military computer systems are bloody terrible.
Fills you with confidence. Don't know if you you were looking at the aviation news today, Rich, but we ended up with a 737 in the grass.
Oh god, I saw that, yeah.
So, yeah, fun. That's probably going to be us later.
Yes.
Have I flown the Black Square TBM yet? No, I have not. I only got home from 1 to go. From down where I'm doing my type rating last night. So I've literally just been asleep all day, and then I thought, oh, you know what's going to be fun? Trying to fly a 737 into a storm. So I am going to have a look at it at some point. I don't know if we've been given a free copy or not. I've got to ask Wallace, who is our guy who sorts things out behind the scenes. Alt capture. Yeah, but I'll definitely have a look at it at some point and hopefully put some sort of video together. Try and recruit somebody who knows at least something about TBMs to help me out as well.
Do we have anyone?
Nathan knows a bit about them. He's been a passenger in one a few times. That's about as close as it gets, I think.
Well, okay, I mean, he is a turboprop guy, so
yeah,
he should know a bit about it.
I'm sad that I'm not considered a turboprop guy now.
Yes. Well, actually, when was the last time you flew a turboprop?
Oh, I don't even...
It's actually a dash, probably, yeah?
Many years now. Oh, King Air, actually.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, a really, really broken C90.
That's a kind of average King Air, I guess, that one.
Pretty much, yeah. Should probably have this on something helpful. Let's have it on the progress page. There we go. So, what's our estimated fuel at destination? 6 tons. My word. Oh no, 3.8. What am I doing? Yeah, 3.8. Okay, so we've still got plenty of reserve fuel on board, so got plenty of mistakes that we can make into Aberdeen. What I'm really dreading is that it's been what it's been doing lately is just as you're about to touch down, it freezes for just like half a second, just long enough to throw you off, and then inevitably you just go flying off the runway.
That sounds like a pilot excuse.
It might be a little bit. Completely moonless night would probably have the...
If you look behind you,
on.
there is a crescent moon somewhere.
No? Well, it's there somewhere.
It is there somewhere. It might have gone down already, actually.
Type rating, yeah. So, yeah. I am doing a type rating at the moment on a 737, so hence why the change in subjects. What's this, a stream? Mind if I join in? Absolutely. I'm in the kitchen and I'll be watching and listening. Hello from the colonies in Canada. Wow. All the way in Canada. Yeah, so I'm about a month into my 737 type rating. I passed the tech exam on Wednesday, and I'm just getting into the last set of simulator sessions before the big test where they decide whether you're good enough to be let loose. Even the circuit breaker panel in the NG looks better. 737 for private use? Definitely not. No, it's an airline. It's an airline that I'm going to be flying for. It's not a passenger airline though. It's cargo airline. So different stuff.
Much better. Just have to deal with silly loadmasters and not passengers.
Yeah, and boxers that slide around and try to smash you into the ground. Splendid weather. Rubbish here on the west coast. It is rubbish. We are flying into the rubbish. If you look at our budget weather radar on the right of the screen there, we're getting towards it. I'm a real pilot. Yeah, believe it or not. They are the best videos with real pilots. Oh, well, that's very flattering, but hang around for a little bit and see how bad it gets is my advice. One thing I really like about the NG, it's got the little mic button up here. On the Classic, if you want to key the mic without using the one on your yoke, you have to reach down and use a little toggle switch down here. In fact, it's this little toggle switch down here. So you'd flick this to RT. One of the weird things I've found, certainly coming from a light aircraft and from the other airplanes I've flown, is that the intercom has to be keyed to talk on it. So you put your headset on and you try talking to the other guy and you can't hear anything. So you have to either key your intercom on the little toggle switch on the, well, it's, I suspect on the captain, it's on the left-hand side, on the first officer on the right-hand side of the yoke. Or you have to flip this to IC here. On the Classic, they actually sometimes put a rubber band around this little toggle switch to keep it in intercom mode, which is strictly not recommended.
I was going to say, how many times have you got this switched the wrong way and just started talking?
Oh, no, loads of times. Loads of times.
Yeah.
Talking down the radio, yeah.
I've never done that on a boat. No.
No. The old favourite is to do your cabin PA on the RT.
Yes. I can see that, yeah.
Now, I wonder why it didn't go into Togo when I hit the button. Is it because I didn't have LNAV VNAV armed? That's the question. Can't see why it wouldn't. I don't know. The in the Classic, you don't take off with VNAV armed because it doesn't have any flap speed protection. Weather at Aberdeen looks horrendous at the moment. Fantastic. It's good to hear. Fills me with confidence. Yeah, so the Classic doesn't have any flap speed protection, so you never take off in VNAV because otherwise it will go to whatever your speed restriction has been entered as, which is usually about 250 knots. And the Classic has maximum flaps 1 and flaps 2 speed, I think, of 230. So you can quite quickly blast through that. So you just take off with nothing set, basically, but then passing 400 feet, you'd select your lateral mode, and passing 800 feet, you'd get it into, you'd reduce the thrust by pressing N1 on the auto throttle. Then passing 1,000 feet, you could accelerate to your flaps up speed, and then once you've got your flaps up, then you can use VNAV. It becomes available then. I'm seeing less and less out the window. That's maybe we're getting closer and closer to the nasty weather. Ooh.
I am shadowing you somewhat. I mean, you're not online, so I don't know where you are, but I'm somewhere over Gloucester, and the weather radar over in front of me, the weather is looking atrocious.
Brilliant.
So, centred on Birmingham. What a surprise.
Well, we're over, just about over the Welsh Hills at the moment. what's the quality of the stream looking like? It's looking alright.
Well, yes, given the camera hasn't moved for a while.
Ooh.
You know, I'm going to occasionally move the camera just to show you're alive, I think.
I am alive, hello. Yeah. Pretty,
There's
pleased with
not
it.
really much to see out there, is there?
Not really. Could focus on the instrument panel. Ooh, look at this. Instruments. Now what we could be doing is briefing the approach at the other end, because we're probably not going to have a huge amount of time to talk about all that kind of stuff. So maybe we have a look for some charts. Could also do the performance for the arrival as well. There we go. ILS runway 16, Aberdeen. So biggest threat is that. Well, aside from the weather, I guess, today. But, yeah, we've got some pretty high ground. We've got 4,100. So, realistically, 5,100 is the altitude we want to be going to if everything goes down the toilet. So, although we do have a missed approach procedure of climbing straight ahead to 3,000 and as directed, what I'm probably going to do, seeing as the missed approach is going to be out over the sea, is I'm just going to go straight ahead up to 5,000 feet and readdress things and try and get my head back in order and then come back for it as required. We'll start setting up all of the aids and stuff. We'll minimize this for the moment because it's getting in the way. In fact, bloody hell. What's the final approach course? It is 159. There we go. This is really key because if you don't have these set up right, the aeroplane won't turn onto the right course when you have it in localizer mode to intercept the ILS localizer. So always remember to do that. Pop the frequencies in as well. So we've got 109.9 on that side, and we'll double it up on this side as well. But what I'm also going to do...
1099 is... What's that?
The India Alpha X-Ray ILS at Aberdeen.
IX... Yeah, that sounds like Exeter.
Well, I don't know. I'm looking at the Aberdeen plate right now, 11-1 Aberdeen.
Okay. That is 1099, yeah, fair enough.
They have to repeat.
Yeah.
They repeat ILS frequencies because limited bandwidth and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm going to put 1143 on there.
You just leave the
yeah.
radio
Didn't have to do anything. I'm going to have 1143 on there for the Aberdeen VOR. So we're going to see if that pops up at any point. Maybe it will. Maybe it won't. Who knows?
Well,
but
we've
got it on
Navigraph,
here,
it's probably sharp about 200 miles away. So.
Right, so that's that. Anything else we want to tune? Anything else we want to do? Anything else we need to consider? Right, so we'd probably go into a briefing at this point and we'd chat about stuff. How we're going to fly it, first of all. So what I can do... Let's see if my my training has paid off. In fact, there's it's put vectors in for us already. Look at that. That's clever. So this is an NG thing. This doesn't happen on the Classic. Normally what you'd have to do on the Classic is you make your own waypoint. But it's done this for us already, which is really clever. So this should give us a sort of line out to infinity for our final approach. So it should allow me to sort of just vector us towards the final approach track, which is pretty handy. So that's fine. So what we're going to do is we're going to drop out of the airways somewhere over here, over the high ground, and then descend towards the initial approach fix, which is basically the Aberdeen VOR, pretty much. So you cross the VOR, well, it's actually a bit before that, so we want to be sort of out here, at least sort of 8.6, so probably about 9-10 miles away. So we'll have it down at 2,500 and we'll have it down to 170 knots. We're going to get everything slowed down really far up the slope to get everything done nice and early, because why wouldn't you with the horrible weather? So we're going to slow down nice and early. We're going to get flaps 5, 170 knots. Get it established on the localizer. Coming down, top of drop 7.1. Flight down the approach. I'm going to leave the autopilot in for a reasonable amount of time, but if the crosswinds are as bad as the forecast says they are, then the autopilot's probably not going to be having the best time of things. So I'm going to have to utilize some of that pilot stuff to get us on the ground. I'm going to have a look at the latest weather. Oh, it's not horrendous on here. It's the latest wind is 080 at 12, but there are CBs in the vicinity, which are cumulonimbus, which are thunderstorm clouds. So yeah, the forecast looks absolutely horrible. So you know, anything's possible when we get there. So the primary threat is going to be the weather. The secondary threat is going to be the terrain. We can always go around is the main defense against the first threat. The second threat is make sure you're 5,000 feet before you do anything, and if you're not, head out over the sea. So that's that really in terms of the frequencies they're all in. Final approach courses are set. Decision altitude of 405 feet. So let's pop that in to the bugs. We're on Barrow. This is one of the most tedious tasks on the 737, spinning this little thing around until you're at the right altitude on the minima. Just double check I've got it right. Yeah, 405. It's actually a little bit easier than doing it in the real aeroplane. Well done, PMDG. There we go. Happy days. Right, so they're set. Mr. Pro, straight ahead to 3,000, blah, blah, blah. Already talked about that. Threats, we've already talked about that. Any notes? Alternative base term? Nah, I don't need to worry about any of that stuff. It's a 3-degree glide slope. And we shouldn't be worrying about an approach band. We should just be worrying about the massive thunderstorms on the final approach. Any questions, Rich?
No, sir.
Lovely. See, the hellscape is building up on the weather radar now, so we're getting there. We're about 30 miles away from the start of it. And we're about 200 miles from our top of descent, so we've still got a way to go yet, actually. Just crossing the Barton waypoint, which is Manchester. Probably have traffic on as well at this point. Probably a good idea. At least one side would always have terrain on as well, especially since you're going into high ground. So probably a good idea for someone to take that. I'll put it on my side. And given the weather radar's in up, I mean, other side may as well have it as well. Unless it's going to tank the frames. So what we've got here is the radar on the nose of the aeroplane is just kind of scanning the ground a little bit and showing us elevation, which is really handy. Got various different devices on this aeroplane to stop you flying into the ground. This is one of them that's good for awareness, really, but the thing that really stops you from hitting the floor, as long as you listen to it, is the EGPWS, which is the Enhanced Ground Proximity Warning System, which actually works on a database of terrain and obstacles stored in its memories, so it can tell you when you're about to hit a hill, which is pretty handy. I'm a GA simmer, and I used to fly for real, but I appreciate those who fly heavies in the sim. Well, thank you very much. I don't usually fly heavies in the sim. I'm not a airliner enthusiast most of the time. It's just
That's an irony, isn't it?
yeah. Given I've now got a job flying one, I thought I may as well give it a go. and spice the content on the channel up a little bit. Most of the stuff we do on this channel is GA. So if you see any of our videos, it's usually GA stuff, and that's not going to change. I just thought it might be fun to occasionally do a little bit of airliner stuff.
So, something goes wrong at this point. What do you do?
Well,
Pick some sort of failure that...
depends on what kind of wrong.
Well, yes, I know. Pick something that doesn't
Okay. Well,
involve going in the back and kicking a box. You know.
the favorite thing for cargo aircraft is some sort of cabin altitude issue, because it's a big old door on the side of the plane, and
Yes.
it's pretty easy for one of those to develop a little bit of a leak that's too much for the packs to keep up with. So if you've got some kind of cabin altitude warning, the first thing you do is always you reach down here, you pull your mask out, you stick it on, you flip your switch over to the mask setting over here, and you establish communications with the guy in the other seat. So, hello, can you hear me? Oh, isn't this terrible? We're all about to suffocate. But that's your immediate threat. You take your immediate threat away. So your immediate threat is obviously running out of oxygen. Once you've done that, you then, or rather the first officer, so in an emergency, generally the captain immediately becomes pilot flying. So captain will call eye of control. First officer then goes up onto the overhead panel. So up here, if I can, there we go. On the pressurization panel over here, we'd stick it into manual mode, and then hold this manual switch here into the closed position to see if you could close the outflow valve, you can indicated by this little gauge here, manually. So if you can do that, if you can shut the outflow valve manually, then it's pretty much disaster averted, although you have to continue the rest of the flight using manual cabin controls, which is not the easiest thing in the world. Yeah.
You forget too.
Yeah.
It's like you're about to land and you suddenly realise it's still overpressured. So.
Yeah, that's not a good one. Well, what would happen is the valves would bust open and everybody's ears would explode. So,
Yes.
but anyway, so that's, if that works, then fantastic. If it doesn't, then first officer is going to put the bing bongs on, put the seatbelt lights on, put the start switches into continuous. The captain at that point is going to call the cabin, regardless of whether you've got anybody sat back there. Cargo aircraft do have a few seats, usually positioned on the back of the cockpit bulkhead. So, you might have people deadheading with you in the back of the aeroplane. So you'd call up and you'd
Just
say,
in the right place to get squashed when.
yeah, exactly. When the
when the
when the ULDs comes crashing through the 9G barrier. So captain calls back and says, "This is the captain. Emergency descent. Emergency descent." At which point he then winds, puts it in speed mode, winds it up to VMO, puts it in VS, winds it down as fast as he possibly can. Well, he'd do the altitude window first, so he'd put the altitude window down to 8,000 or something like that, put it in VS, wind it down to max vertical speed mode, and down we'd go with the speed brakes up as well, so we'd pull the speed brakes up too.
Yep. What is the maximum vertical speed allowed?
Oh, good question. I think it's minus 6,000, but don't quote me on that.
Oh, blimey! Your poor ears.
Yeah.
Oh.
Let me check. I might be able to find out for you. I should actually know this. I've literally just done the tech exam.
Yes.
But, let's have a look in the FCOM. Let's have a look at the limitations section.
And actually, yes. And how much altitude do they allow you to pull out if you're going down at that speed?
You'd usually pull out 2,000 feet above, or you'd start to reduce the descent. Oh, there we go. Look, we're hitting some turbulence now. Here we go. Yeah, so you'd usually start your level off 2,000 feet before your target. So the captain would start to wind back on the vertical speed.
Right.
And the autopilot is honestly really good. So it just kind of picks it up and gathers it up as long as you're not too, you're not too crazy. So you can usually trust the autopilot to do that for you. So yeah, that's the one you're probably most commonly going to encounter on a cargo aircraft. Not that it happens a lot, but
No.
certainly on the older
Just-
aeroplanes when the rubber starts to get a bit old.
Just a pop quiz, though.
Yeah.
As you're sitting around doing nothing except watching turbulence.
This is great. Look at that bloody trend line going all over the place.
I know.
Now, obviously, if we
Looks
did have
like
anyone... Go
It's
on.
like some 80s video game with an anteater or something.
Yeah, definitely. Anti to Quest. Yeah, so if you did have anyone in the back at this point, you'd be calling them up and saying, sit your ass down, turn the coffee maker off, and get belted up. Because things are about to get rough.
Or at least attach yourself with a harness or something.
Yeah.
Bungee cords. That'd be kind of fun.
Okay, let's have a look.
North of Pole Hill, it's actually not too bad.
Oh, okay. In fact, it's probably on the automatic flight section. There we go. Vertical navigation. Right, so vertical speed mode range is minus 7,900 to plus 6,000.
Ooh. And
This
at
is
what point
where-
do you have to tell somebody that you've just done that.
What, that you've just gone down at minus 7,900
Yes,
feet?
Yeah.
Probably when you level off at the bottom. No, as
Yeah.
you coming down, the FO is going to call up and say, call a mayday and say we're in an emergency descent.
Yep.
Because obviously,
No, I was thinking more like maintenance.
Oh well. I mean, if you've got a second, you could probably call them up on the HF.
Yep.
And you do it in flight, and you say, look, we've had a cabin altitude warning. We've had to do an emergency descent. Blah blah blah. We're going to Aberdeen. We've got no maintenance at Aberdeen, so give us a hotel, please.
Yep.
Something else we can do while we're sat around waiting for the top of descent point, which is now 127 miles away, is we can put our performance in ready to go. So let's do the OPT, shall we? Landing en route. Aberdeen. Again, apologies that you can't see this. Runway 16. Let's assume that it's wet. What's the wind?
Can you pop out the FMS window?
I don't know.
Right out.
Can I
and
click on it? Click on it? Right out and click on it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Apparently I can.
There you go.
Look at that. So, if anyone wants to see what a huge FMS looks like, that's what it looks like. Interesting. There we go. Right. Okay. Let's just check the wind. It's still 080 at 12 knots. That's a bit of a letdown. I was expecting a million knots, but we'll see. Like I said, anything's possible because that's just the instantaneous wind. Could be absolutely anything by the time we get there because the weather looks very, very unsettled. OAT is 6 degrees, balmy 6 degrees. QNH is going to be 996. We're going to go flaps 40. Or is... see, it's a short runway, but in gusty conditions you generally want to avoid flaps 40. So this is where an experienced captain would probably say some words of wisdom.
Taft does say gusting to 33 knots.
You know what, I'm going to risk it. Flaps 40, because at least if we do hit the runway, we'll at least stop. It's going to be a manual approach. We're going to have bleeds auto. Anti-icing is going to be probably engine anti-icing on, so we'll run it with that. Brakes config, we're going to go auto brakes 3. There's no non-normals. Reversers are all operational, and our landing weight is going to be 61.9. Let's calculate this. Brilliant. So landing distance available 1,952. Operational landing distance 2,017 meters.
Ooh, and it's wet.
And it's wet. Well, this factors in the wet. Okay, we're going to have to go max manual braking then. Let's see if we can make it. Yeah, we can make it with max manual. Let's see if we can do it with max auto. Oh, we can do it max auto. We're going to do max auto, so this is going to absolutely smoke the brakes. So we'll set that now. There we go. You can see you have to pull the auto brake switch out to make it go into maximum mode. So, interesting fact about the auto brakes. They set a rate of deceleration rather than a brake pressure setting. So if you land with the reversers not working and with the reversers working, you stop at exactly the same point on the runway, except without the reversers running, your brakes are a lot hotter. And that is in every mode apart from RTO. RTO is the only one that gives you absolutely maximum braking effort. If you want to stop the aeroplane in the shortest distance possible, the best way to do it is to just stand on the brakes and let the anti-skid do its thing. So there you go. That was something that I found quite interesting, because obviously none of the aeroplanes I've flown before the 7.3 have had automatic brakes. That's like space magic as far as I know. The weather radar's actually clearing up.
That's because it's all east of the Pennines.
Interesting. Yeah, I can see some stuff just to the right here. How far out will this go? Although, yeah, it's still all over the place there. The real question is, will my internet handle me watching the Formula 1 at the same time as flying the approach?
Oh, I've no doubt your internet will handle it. It's whether OBS will handle it.
Whether my skills will handle it.
Stop broadcasting it. Then you'll get banned off YouTube.
Yeah. No, I'll. I might just stick it on my phone. So yeah. You watch any Formula 1, Rich?
I used to. I haven't for years though. I watch sports cars though.
Touring cars, that kind of thing.
So, like,
endurance racing.
Touring cars, endurance racing, just not single seaters because they're just dull.
Fair enough.
Not interesting. No,
Fair
it's like it's all personalities and everything. I'm more interested in watching teams do stuff. So.
Yeah, I mean, me too. I'm a McLaren fan, and I have been since I was 7 years old. So the only reason I still watch Formula 1 is to cheer McLaren on. Don't really care about drivers or anything like that.
Oh yeah, I was going to say they've got a Works GT team, but they don't anymore. So.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. They used to run racing versions of the road cars, didn't they?
Well, they do, but GT racing's a bit tricky because it's like you're not really allowed Works teams in pure GT racing or GT3 racing, but there's some teams that are near as damn it Works teams.
Yeah.
So you won't get teams like called Porsche or McLaren or whatever, but you'll get factory teams.
I'm young enough to remember Jackie Stewart. Wow, what a man! Jackie Stewart. I once almost met Jackie Stewart. He was walking through an airport security checkpoint to get on his private jet just before I walked out there. My boss actually did see him and say, "Wow, hello, Jackie Stewart. I'm a huge fan," which was very cool. Apparently, he was absolutely lovely.
Yes, apparently he is pretty nice. I've never met him, but
I
should go to Goodwood one year.
Yeah, I've been there once. It was
We'll go again.
really good. Yeah.
Yes. Maybe
I might actually have enough money to go at some point now. So, thank you, airline. That's the thing with flying instructing. It's fun, but it's not really a job. It's more like a vocation, which you get a small amount of pocket money for.
I think that's the first time I've heard you call it fun, actually. But now you're not doing it anymore.
No, it is fun. The unfun bits are getting hit by gliders or almost getting hit by gliders. Old broken aeroplanes and things like that. But
that's not limited to instructing, is it?
well, yeah. I mean, old broken airplanes. I mean, I'm about to go and fly a 737 Classic, so I'm probably still going to be getting a fair bit of that.
It's a very big Piper Alpha, Piper 28 or something.
Yeah. I mean, the good thing about the Classic is it does fly really nicely. It's actually quite responsive and quite light on the controls as far as airliners go. So compared to the newer versions of the 737, like the 800, which to me fly like a sack of unmentioning things.
What's the weight difference? What's the MTOW difference?
It's about I mean, what is it? 61234. And what is the maximum on the NG? It's about 10 tons heavier, I think, the NG.
So what's that percentage-wise? It's like.
I mean, what's 10 tons as a percentage of 70 tons?
Yeah, whatever.
Something like that. Yeah, 12%, something like that. So yeah, it's the wing. It's the wing difference that's the biggest thing, because the 737-400 is almost the same length as the 800, and it still flies well. I guess it's an acquired taste. I guess when I've flown the 800 a bit, maybe I'll warm up to it. Classic airline is steam gauges with the 727. Yeah, that's absolutely right. But my airline has a 737 with steam gauges, so yeah, it doesn't have to be a 72. I'm looking forward to flying that, actually, because I think there are very, very few of those left in the world. Our head of safety absolutely hates that aeroplane, because it presents such massive challenges for training and all sorts of other things. You've got to have all sorts of sign-offs before you're allowed to fly it. And there's only one aeroplane in the whole fleet.
Maintenance loves it too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And they're constantly trying to sell it. And funnily enough, it's not been bought yet.
Yeah, hold that.
Sadly, all of the classics are going. When they come up to check C, they're gonna go and be replaced by NGs.
7.2 in this country still, because it was ahead yesterday.
There are two, as far as I know, and they both belong to oil spill response.
Yep.
Very cool. That's a cool aeroplane. Really cool aeroplane.
Must be an interesting job.
Yeah, you'd imagine so, wouldn't you? I'm doing a really bad job of keeping my heading bug up to date. In civilized aeroplanes, you can click the heading bug in and it sinks.
That's newfangled technology.
Yeah, thanks, Boeing. I wonder if they've brought that kind of development to the Max. Probably not.
Oh, don't even start.
I spoke to somebody who'd flown a Max the other day, and he says they are actually really quite nice to fly. I don't know how, but
probably are quite nice to fly until they don't like you.
Yes, we don't mention these things. Bear in mind, trim runaway is a memory item. Just saying.
Well, yeah, I mean, speed trim has a runaway mode, doesn't it?
Then
did the 400s have? Did the really old ones have speed trim?
Yeah. They have it. But speed trim uses the autopilot trim system, so the drill for a trim runaway on the speed trim system is exactly the same as it is for a regular trim runaway.
So remove autopilot, retrim.
Yeah. So grab hold of the yoke, kick the automatics out, fight the yoke basically, and that should cut it out. The act of you putting inputs in on the yoke should cut the trim.
Yep.
Fight it with the trim switches if that works. If it doesn't work, then call the FO for trim cutout, pull the manual trim wheel out, wind it round. sometimes if it's really bad, if you've got something like a floating stabilizer, like if the jack screws come off,
Yeah.
then
Is that recoverable? Wow.
it is, believe it or not, but you have to kind of hold. Someone has to be holding the trim wheel constantly to stop it from
Jesus, yeah.
freewheeling around,
Wow.
which sounds
Well,
fun.
I'm impressed that that's a recoverable
Yeah.
problem, though. Wow.
What we got to top of descent? Let's have a look. Oh yeah, so let's make sure we pop this in before I forget. There we go, firm that up. Got 36 miles top of descent. Still getting bashed around all over the place. Great thing about flying cargo is that nobody is there to make you tea or coffee, so you have to go back in the back and make your own.
At least you get some good tea. Not.
I don't know. What's
I
what's
could take
Yorkshire's?
them into-
Doesn't Yorkshire's favourite airline use Yorkshire tea?
Should they?
We'll have to ask our resident Yorkshire's favourite airline enjoyer.
Probably find he drinks coffee. Disgusting.
Well, he is like so many % Greek, so you know there's no accounting for taste.
Oh.
So we can see top of descent annunciators on the ND here. So one of the great things about the Boeing setup is that you don't have to initiate the descent, you can just turn it down. And it'll start the descent for you. Speaking of coffee, I'll go and prepare a pour over. Anyone else fancy a cup? Yeah, get me a coffee, please. Keep me awake. I've been getting very, very little sleep over the past couple of weeks, actually, when I've been biting my fingernails off thinking about the tech exam. It's quite a funny situation going from being a flying instructor to being a student again.
Yeah. I could believe that, actually. It's like when you go and get a job and then you go back to uni afterwards and it's just like, what the hell am I doing?
Yeah. The a couple of the other people on my course are sort of like fresh out of training guys who have they do a lot of their like multi-crew stuff in 737 simulators these days. So they get in the 737 already knowing like the layout of the cockpit and all this kind of stuff. And honestly, the thing that helped me so much is Flight Simulator, because the only way I knew where any of the stuff was in the cockpit, which gave me a significant sort of head start over my sim partner, who is way more experienced than I am, was the fact that I've had that little bit of playing around on Flight Simulator. So if anyone says, "Oh, Flight Simulator's not worthwhile, it's just a stupid waste of time," and all this kind of stuff, tell them to shove it, because it genuinely helped me. And I still enjoy it, obviously, otherwise I wouldn't be doing this.
Yeah, I mean, it's just familiarising yourself with stuff. You can do that, you know. It doesn't have to be a 100% accurate flight model or anything to do that, does it?
No, absolutely not,
Just to work out where all those switches are.
I mean, you could probably do it with like Flight Sim 2004 or something like that, but
Why would you subject yourself
yeah,
to that?
why would you?
I suppose if you want to, you know, prepare yourself for some ancient full motion simulator, then
yeah, you'll be fine. If you need motivation, just remember you can go back instructing. Yeah, I can always go back instructing, definitely. No, it's I do intend to go back instructing in my spare time, because my one of the best things about this job is the roster is really good, and we do 7 days on and 7 days off. So in my 7 days off, I fully intend to go back and do a little bit of instructing. So yeah, hopefully keeping my eye in with both sides of things, with the light aircraft and the jet powered things. So at this point, if I hadn't gotten a descent clearance already, I'd be thinking about asking for one, because we're getting pretty close to our calculated top of descent point. aeroplane has suddenly decided to slow down. Now, I don't know if that's... is that in response to... Is that ahead of time, ready for the top of descent, maybe? It's very clever if it is. Yeah, it's bringing the speed back here. Okay. Clever. More clever than the Classic, that's for sure. You sort of, as a Classic driver, you have to kind of think, oh, maybe I want to slow down at this point, and then you adjust the speeds in the cruise page on the FMC ahead of time. Reset MCP altitude. There we go. So let's in fact let's assume we've been cleared down to something like, I don't know, 80. Let's go to 80 initially. Not that way. There we go. And we do our pre-descent checklist. So let's have a look at that. There is a way on this iPad to favourite all of the important stuff, and because I'm stupid, I have not worked out how to do that. So I'm having to kind of go in and out of all the stuff. Right, descent, pressurization, landing altitude is set to 250 feet. Recall. Oh, we got a recall. What is it? Air conditioning. What's the air conditioning saying? Off schedule descent. No, it isn't. It literally isn't. Shut up. Recalls checked. Auto brake is set to maximum. Landing data is bugged. We've got a VREF of 137 knots. Minimums are set onto 405 on both sides. Approach briefing has been completed. And the next is the approach checklist. And we normally set the approach checklist when, or do the approach checklist when we get cleared down to an altitude. So when we set QNH, that's the trigger to do the approach checklist. So there we go. That yellow on the weather radar's looking great. Can't wait. Oh look, Verstappen's fastest. What a surprise. Spoiler alert for anyone watching the Formula One with a delay. Let's get this on the descent page. So this is a useful page to check for restrictions. So we're not going to stop at any point till we get to 2,500, which is our top of descent point for the approach. So that's handy. We are getting 64 miles off the VOR, Alpha Delta November, which is the Aberdeen VOR. So that's coming in now, which is handy. That's good for conspicuity in case we lose everything, all the GPS nav stuff. We've at least got a needle pointing at something something relevant.
Talking of GPS, do they not require GPS nav equipment for IFR these days?
Not GPS specifically. It has to be RNP, required navigation performance.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you can achieve the required RNP level for the airspace or routing that you're flying on with old school stuff like area nav or inertia nav, then you're good. The only thing you can't do with area nav and inertia nav is fly a GPS approach, because you need RNAV 0.5 performance for that, and no inertia nav system has got RNAV 0.5. So that is the limitation. So, for example, when Stansted was having work done on its ILS, a lot of our aeroplanes weren't able to go in there because they couldn't fly the RMP, and there's no other option at Stansted other than a visual. So generally, you don't dispatch a commercial flight when a visual approach is your only option, sadly. Although they are a lot of fun.
Especially not an airline that flies at night a lot.
Yeah, exactly. So That's the reason why all of the aeroplanes are bit by bit they're getting retrofitted with GPS, but they're all kind of in a race against time. Like, are they going to hit check C, or are they going to get the GPS fitted first? Because if they hit check C first, they're going bye bye. So I don't know if I'll. At the moment, we've got one with GPS fitted, so I don't know how many classics with GPS fitted I'm going to get to fly before the end of my time with the classic.
Depends if either be a good boy or a bad boy. And they'll let you fly it, or they'll make you fly it.
Well, true.
Depending if they see it as a punishment or not. So, what RMP level is an INS system, or of that vintage, I guess, because they'll all be different.
They can usually come down to. That's a good question, actually. About I think RMP 1 or RMP 2.
Yeah. And for anybody just wondering what RMP levels are, it's the just
required navigational performance. Yeah, so you can
literally accuracy in miles, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So you can see down here for the airspace and the airway we're flying on at the moment, we need RMP 1 to stay in this airway. So we'd be able to achieve that with an inertia nav system. What we've actually got, what the aeroplane is actually giving us, is actual navigation performance of 0.07, because we're in a fancy NG with GPS and all the other fancy stuff. Yes. If I was going for my endorsement, I'd definitely go with 5. Oh, well, that's very nice of you to say. I did have a 100% pass rate for all of my students for 7 years of instructing, so I must have been semi all right at it. This Q1's going a bit weird. We've got Gasly fastest now. That's was strange, with Hulkenberg second. I think the track must be ramping up.
Which track is it? Where are they?
Austin.
I know nothing about that one.
Circuit of the Americas.
Oh, right. Yes, I do know that one.
Yeah,
what horrible track that is.
I don't know. I like it. It's very, very bumpy though. It's really bumpy. I don't know if I'd want to be driving around it in an open wheeler. That's for sure.
No.
Alright, we're about to go through flight level 100, so we do our flight level 100 checks. Any thoughts on the 808 Comanche? I really like it. I thought that's a real pilot. It's brilliant. Absolutely fantastic. Go out. I'd recommend it to anyone. Go out and buy it.
Yep. There's only one caveat I have with it, and that's if you've got a yoke, you probably never notice, but if you if you put some roll in, with a stick, there's a little delay while it sorts its life out and starts things rotating.
Interesting.
If you center the stick fast, then it just stops rolling.
Yeah.
It's, like there's no momentum.
Yeah.
That's literally the only problem I've had with it.
I think that's
the only thing that's kicked me out of immersion.
Yeah. I think that's probably because it's got a lot of stuff going on in the background, doesn't it? All that clever aerodynamic stuff that it does outside the sim. And maybe if you're using a stick and banging a stick around, it's not quite fast enough to keep up with that.
It may just be an oversight, because if they test it with a yoke, you never notice it because you're not going to center a yoke that fast.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But if you've got a stick, and you tend to move sticks a lot quicker than yokes. So
yeah, I fly with a yoke, or at least I fly that with a yoke. So
yeah,
hence
that's
why.
it. I think I can't remember anything else. The animations were a bit screwed for a bit, but I think they fixed them all.
Right, we're going to go all the way down to 2.5 now. So passing flight level 100 as well. So we've got to do the checks for that. So inboards come on. Turn-offs don't go on just yet. Logo lights can go on. We'll put the wing lights on as well. I use the Bravo yoke. Yeah, me too. Really like the Bravo. So we'll get rid of that. Can't get rid of that. Interesting. Yeah, pressurization looks good. It's got the pressurization altitude set. That's fine. We can put the dome light off now as well. There we go. I'm also at this point going to go into heading cell and start to give myself a little bit more space. So in real life, more than likely what you'd be getting at this point would be radar vectors from ATC. So there we go. All I'm going to do is extend down this way, so maybe it would help me to have a chart out. Come here, Navigraph. Show me a chart. There we go. So we're over here somewhere. So we're going to be descending to 2,500 feet, and I'm just extending out this way a little bit to give us plenty of time. It's not too bad. The high ground's not too bad up here, so we don't have to worry too much about that. And 2,500 feet should be safe.
I left this thing in VNav, and 25 miles from ADN, I was still at 26,000 feet. So
That's interesting.
well done, aircraft.
Yeah, good job. This the one thing that the NG is that the classic isn't necessarily is incredibly slippery, so it doesn't like to slow down and go down.
Yeah.
Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bang it into level change at this point and start to get the speed back towards 210. As I said, we're going to be very, very conservative with our speed and height. Get it off nice and early, and stay well ahead of the aeroplane. Can see on our terrain display there's no green stuff out this way, which is handy. So the white line coming out here is our track over the ground, and the little carrot up here is our heading. So you can see we're getting quite a significant amount of crosswind from the right, which is displayed by this arrow over here. So a lot of information displayed on this little display here, but as long as you know how to get your head around it, it's very, very useful for situations like this. Now, I'm not picking the ILS up from either side yet, but that's pretty understandable. There's lots of hills and stuff around here, and we aren't lined up with the centre line yet, so I'm not going to get too worried just yet, but we just need to remember that we haven't done any idents yet. And we're also going to set standards, or get rid of standards, sorry. So let's see what the latest Q&H is. So the latest Q&H is 995. On that. Now you noticed I didn't set standard on the ISI. That's because we didn't go into RVSM airspace, so you leave the Q&H on this. If you're staying below RVSM, which is 2,900, if I remember rightly, or flight level 290 rather.
What was the dash light to slow down?
Very, very easy. It's got two massive props on each side, so it just goes whee down at 3,500 feet a minute, no problem. All right, we're going to start turning towards the runway now. And we can use this green banana bar as an indication of where we're going to level off. So ideally we want to be at 2,500 before we intercept the final approach track, but I've given us this extra bit of space specifically, so if we don't, it's not the end of the world. Hamilton fastest from Norris. I'll take that. It's only Q1 though. Oop.
Oof.
My frames.
Oh, it's just having a momentary crisis, I guess.
Yeah. I'm going to get rid of the magic weather radar now. I think that might be hurting the frames a little bit. Now you might be wondering why I've bugged 210. Well, 210 is our flaps up speed. So it's our minimum maneuvering speed with no flap selected. So what we do if we want to slow down from here is we select flap first and then we can slow down incrementally to each of the maneuvering speeds for the subsequent stages of flaps. All I'm trying to do here is line this track bar up with the end of the extended center line that it's very kindly painted on for us. What I can do is, in fact, I can make that extended center line. If I make this active, no. Can I make the vector active? Will it let me do that? Maybe not. No, if I can't do it, then what's the point? Final approach course is what? 159. There we go. So that's our extended center line there. One to go. So I thought it was going to do that for us, but I guess it's not as smart as I thought it was. Right, I am still going to start throwing some flaps out now. That's checked, radar altitude's active. So speed check, flaps 1. Speed back to 190. Oh, the frames aren't liking this for whatever reason. Coffee done, and I simply won't get the TBM 850. I'll wait for a better one. Oh, okay. I've heard a lot of good things about the TBM.
Yeah, there was a big patch recently too, somebody was saying.
Yeah, apparently the aerodynamics were a bit wonky, but they've gone a long way to sorting them out now.
I think the turbine simulation was a bit primitive as well. But
Right. Right,
you
so
could just, smack it in full throttle and go upwards and
right.
not have to worry about anything. So.
Right, approach checklist nav aids are set. Still don't have an ident. It's getting a bit late for that, but I'll call it when I see it. Yeah, for some reason we've got no idents on either side, but we do have them tuned. 1099, 1099 is set and checked. I guess we'll see.
I'm in a hold over the VR, and I have them on both.
Altimeter set and cross-checked. And that's the approach checklist complete. Next is the landing checklist. Oh, no way. Hulkenberg's out. He was fat. Oh, Alonso's out. No way. That's a shocker. I mean, as a McLaren fan, lol, but... Right, let's set an intercept, and we're going to arm VLOC. VLOC arms.
I think the last Formula 1 race I really watched was
Flaps
Button won
5.
in Montreal.
Oh, that was a brilliant race.
Because
My
it was
word.
Like 4 laps down at one
Yeah,
point,
yeah.
and that was the longest F1 race ever.
Past
And I
Vettel
just
on
thought-
the last lap.
Yes. I thought I'm never ever going to see a better Formula 1 race than this.
Unbelievable.
So, that's
Unbelievable.
That was just crazy.
There was that, the Silverstone 2008, there's Fuji 2005. Was it Fuji? No, sorry, Suzuka 2005.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, all of the McLaren victories, I wonder why. Right, we're getting a loc and a glide slope, which means surely we should be getting... Oh, I tell you what, it's because I've left it in VOR. Or is it? No, that should be coming up there. We should be getting... Yeah, there we go. IAX 159D. It's a difference in the presentation. On the Classic, you'd be getting this on your EHSI. So it's just a difference in the presentation. So yeah, we are set and checked and identers, so we're all happy, we're good to go, and given that the airplane's rolling, I'm guessing it has detected that the localizer is alive. I should probably have this in approach mode. And once it's aligned itself, I'll put it in expanded approach. So this is just personal preference. A lot of people don't bother because you do have your localizer and glide slope on here. On the PFD. It's having a bit of a nightmare capturing this, and I guess it's struggling because of the wind. As soon as we're within half scale deflection, we can arm the approach. There we go. This is going to be quite a crosswind, running 40 knots on the display at the moment. Now bear in mind wind backs and slacks as you go down the approach, so it's going to get better as we go down, but at the moment it's pretty spicy.
Well, there's another pop quiz. What's the crosswind limit?
Crosswind limit's 40 knots.
Ah, convenient.
Hmm.
So the crosswind, it only reports up to 40 knots.
Glide is alive, gear down, flap 15. And IS 150. Look at that heading bugger lines. Look at that for a crab angle. Love it. Can't see any runway lights, which is a little worrying.
You look right a bit more.
Okay, let's assume we've been cleared to land. So let's throw these on. Those go to continuous now. Auto brakes checked. And spoilers armed. Single channel enunciating because we're not doing it auto land. And that's glide capture flaps 30. Set VREF +5. Should be 141, strictly speaking. And set Mr. Approach altitude 3,000 feet. So our stable criteria is at 1,000 feet. We have to be inside half scale on both, and plus 20 minus 5, or plus 10 minus 5, sorry, on the speed. I don't think, no, I think it is plus 20 because it's very generous. It was the Flyby was plus 10 minus 5. Okay, so 1,000 checked. That's Manland, Barrow set 405, Missed approach altitude set.
And rugby visual up just, if that's
Just
that little
about.
dot.
Yeah, yeah, see the lights in the distance there. Okay, right. Let's get hands on. So, manual flight. Normally the auto throttle disconnect is on the switch there, but I'll just do it like that because it's easier. This is getting very rough, and the frames are getting choppy as well, just to make things a little bit more... Thanks, Microsoft Flight Simulator. Much appreciated. I'll be even more proud if I somehow manage to land this now.
Oh my god, the crow angle. This is amazing.
Oh my god, I'm playing at like 2 frames a second. 100 above.
Minimums.
Visual land. Oh my days. Oh, come on, frames.
50. 30. 20.
If he went around, it would probably be alright the second time. It's just probably loading stuff.
10.
No, we land him. By hook or by crook. Max reverse. Oh my god. Okay, spoilers up, reverses arms, 60 knots. That's generally not how to land a 737, but it's also really hard to do at 2 frames a second. And all, of course, here we go. Now the frames have perfectly cleared up and it's perfectly smooth. Love it.
Add that to the to-do list of things to check, I think. I bet there's some setting to twiddle.
Yeah, probably. I just set everything to ultra, and it's usually alright, but that was horrendous. Right. So, speed brakes up. Flaps. Let's put this light on so we can actually see what we're doing.
So, runway heading is 159, isn't it?
Yep.
And my aircraft is pointing at 143.
Beautiful. APU starts. Pitos can go off. And transponder can go out off. Don't worry, only a sim. Yeah, thankfully. Don't get low FPS in real life. Oh yeah, auto brakes need to come off as well. '24 will be a game. Well, as long as it's a fun game.
2024 is just 2020 with stuff stuck on it.
Yeah, I can't imagine there's going to be a huge amount of difference, but as long as it doesn't slow down to 12 FPS on short final, then
Just be a bunch of stuff you can ignore if you don't want. You
Yeah.
know, just like this one, really.
so at this point there we go.
Wow, this
APU can come on
turbulence is
bus.
crazy.
I'm really lazy, I'm going to stick it at the terminal. They can drive the bloody loader out here and offload us. Oh, I see someone with... Oh, there's someone with wands in the dark. Hello. Let's turn the taxi lights off so we don't give them retinal burn. I'm sticking with 2020 as long as possible. Microsoft can't make me change. Well, no, they can't.
It's all going to be compatible anyway.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Bloody hell, come on, plane. What's going on here? Now I'm apparently stuck Well, here's as good a place as any. Parking brakes set. Right, 2 blues. 1 red. Engines are dead. And APU bleed can come on. Once the M1's below 5%, stick the anti-coal off. Pop wheel well lights on. And we can pull up some ground services. Set the chocks. Now, given that we've just absolutely smoked the brakes, I'm going to release the parking brake as soon as the chocks are in to help them cool down. Request our ground power. And request all the loaders and carts and stuff to come up to start unloading us. Well done, enjoyable and perhaps educational. Yes, but only perhaps. Yeah, thank you for everybody who stuck around and watched. And if you're watching the VOD, thank you for watching the VOD. Hopefully next time I try a stream. I won't get 2 FPS on landing, and I'll be able to do a little better than I did that time. But you know, it's all fun and games, isn't it? Hopefully it was at least a little bit interesting, and we've worked out that I can actually stream amazingly. So my internet's good enough. Hooray. So there we go. Expect more streams in the future. Anything you want to say, Rich?
No, sir.
Thank you for coming along. Much appreciated. Giving up your Friday evening to come and sit and watch an idiot play Flight Sim. Yeah, and thank you very much, everybody. And
we didn't crash.
We didn't crash.
Yes.
So yeah,
Success.
take care, everyone, and hopefully see you next time. Bye bye.
Yeah, cheers, guys.